Hey everybody. See if anybody's in here. Florence was in here. Hey girl. Let me fix my ears. Okay. I had my earbuds like crammed in my ears. I could not hear. I think this may have been a bad time to do this with Marsha live. Let me give it a minute. Okay, there's some people. Andrew, Cricket, Sleuth Investigates. Hey y'all. So Marky Mark wanted to do a live stream about Manson. He knows a lot about Manson, so that's what we're going to do. Hey, Dennis. Light Feather. Hey, girl. Faithful One. Lori. Okay, I'm never going to pronounce this name, but I can pronounce Angelina. Hey, girl. Julie. Hey. How's everybody been doing? Did you have a good Saturday? I'm doing good. Dennis, thank you for asking. It's cold here. The Wilsons, hey. Crystal, hey. Hey, Bridget. Well, Marky Mark's supposed to know a lot about Manson. And actually, I've been watching some stuff about Manson this evening. Cricket's worked all day. Crystal's at work listening. It's been very cold here. I wonder where Marky Mark's at. Maybe I should message him. Anyways, I've been watching some of Charles Manson's interviews. I wrote down the name that was interviewing him, the guy. Let me find it. I think it was a Snyder guy. Tom Snyder. I loved that interview with Tom Snyder. And you can find Manson interviews, of course, y'all know, here on YouTube. And I also watched this vlog. These people go around just traveling, doing vlogs that I came across that was just uploaded a couple days ago. And they were interviewing Matthew Roberts, who claims to be Manson's son. And it was quite an interesting video. He was telling about how this guy that collected Manson memorabilia, I can't say that damn word, memorabilia, I can't say it. Frig. Anyways, y'all know what I'm talking about. Was also close friends with Manson. This guy lived in Chicago. Manson had gave that guy a will. And in the will, he left I guess that Manson had money. He left everything to Matthew Roberts, but it didn't hold up in court. I like the video for his 1992 parole hearing. This deputy parole commissioner yells at him, "Good." And Manson looked like he shrunk another 2 inches. He was quite a little feller, wasn't he? He was quite short. The Wilsons, I remember when it was happening. Oh, really? I read Helter Skelter at 17. I have never read Helter Skelter. Now, I watched another interview today. I think it was an LA Times reporter interviewing Michael Bruner, which is Mary Bruner's son. And I think he was born in 1968. And he lived at the ranch when he was little, I think until his mom went away for armed robbery, and his grandparents raised him. Bridget Parker, small man syndrome. Yeah. The Wilsons. I live in Los Angeles. Oh man, do you really? I want to go to the Max Factor Museum so bad. Like I'm obsessed with makeup, even though I suck at putting it on. I'm also obsessed with Marilyn Monroe. Oh my gosh, this earbud's killing me. Andrew's a good read, but creepy. Yeah. Well, where's our guest at? Maybe I should message him. Um, so I think Manson's mom was actually from Kentucky or West Virginia. One, I can't remember. I can pull it up and look at all that information though. Andrew, I think small man syndrome is what the hairy butt bandit has. Yes. I think they know who that guy is. That guy I put up in that video is supposed to be the guy that come up on the panel and showed his hairy butt to all of us. CeeLo Drive was Sharon Tate's house. Oh, really? I would love to go by Sharon Tate's house, and I would love to go out there to the Spawn Ranch. Oh, that'd be so fun. So what Julie said. My 400-pound stepdad was reading Helter Skelter. Burglar alarm went off. He flipped his chair over backwards and Kane ran through the house for my mom. Are you serious? Oh, Sleuth investigates the hairy butt bandit. Yeah. My hubby came up with that name. I showed him the video of the guy doing it to me and stuff. And he's like, y'all need to call him the hairy butt bandit. Julie, that was in the 70s. I didn't know if he was pulling my leg or not, Julie. I didn't know if he was being serious or not. That's a funny story. The Wilsons. Yes, I've been there to Spawn Ranch. It's in the valley in Chatsworth. I would love to go there. Bridget, they demolished the original house, which kind of sucks. Sharon Tate's original house, really? Best nickname I've heard for a while, Hairy Butt Bandit. Yeah. You know what? I would never go real life on someone. But if I knew that boy's mother's phone number, I would call her and tell her that her son is mooning people on their Facebook or YouTube lives. I really would. He was in Mel Mel's chat, and she said something to him about it. He was under that name Marissa Braby, pretends to be a female. And he's like, his mom wouldn't care. She would laugh about it. Really? Like, I would kick my son's ass if he done somebody that way. Wilson, Sharon Tate's house is totally different now. Yeah, I was noticing, like, in the older clips when it was showing them at the crime scene and stuff versus the newer clips, it looks kind of different, the door and stuff. Faithful when he would deserve it. Yeah, he deserves having his mommy called on him. Calling his mother's the ultimate payback. Yes, Bridget, I'm going to do it. If I was to find out who he was and stuff, I would track her down. Uh-oh, Marky Mark is up here. Gosh, please don't be the hairy butt bandit.
Hey, Cece, it's me.
Hey. Yeah, I can hear you.
Is that guy still going around? He hasn't been caught, huh? He's still on the loose?
Yeah, well, they think that's him. That video I put up showing that guy, that little gamer guy, they think
Right.
that's him. But I don't know 100% if it's him, but allegedly that's him.
So you got a face, a composite of him, yeah. So he's Yeah, that's good that he wears awareness because if he's going around to other people's lives, do you know if he's going to other people's lives? Do you know?
Yeah, he went into this guy's channel. The channel is called Enlightened Cafe.
Oh, wow.
See, the guy called him somehow, like the Harry Butt Bandit come up and tried to get on his stream, like how you're sitting in the back room before I put you on.
Right.
Okay, so he never could get on that guy's panel, from what I understand, but he forgot to click out somehow. And that's how that guy caught him. And I guess he's a gamer and was going to go live or something, basically. So that's how he caught him and got a video of him.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so he's not from this community. He's from different type community.
Yeah. Yeah.
My God. Yeah. So I don't know. I heard you guys talking a bit about Helter Skelter. Is that the book?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So people already have a bit of an idea of what that book entails and what the theories are and everything. Because there's more than one theory. So but that theory mains in on the Helter Skelter.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know the basics about Charles Manson, but I didn't read Helter Skelter. So tell us about the theories, if that's where
Well,
you, or
yeah.
wherever you want to start.
If you want to start like with his childhood, we can kind of move up towards, when he got out of, you can get his time in prison after his childhood, and then when he was let out, and then when he met the family, and then Spawn Ranch, and then the murders, and then the trial. I mean, that's how I usually break it up because you can
Okay.
overlap it if you don't go in if you don't get it organized. You know what I mean?
Hey, yeah, I know. You sound
So,
professional. I like that. So do you know
yeah,
about his childhood, or
I
do you
think
need me to look it up?
no, I've
Huh?
actually read. You can if you want to if you want to pull up like some photos while we go over it, that'd be cool. I don't know if you can do that.
Hey, I will try it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it messes with your audio when you screen share, but
Okay. Yeah.
I will try
Let's
it.
try it, and then if it doesn't, then we'll just go by audio. So basically, Charlie was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was born to his mother Kathleen Maddox, who was according to the book, it was a 16-year-old prostitute. I know you guys were talking about that. And according to also is that Manson's father, his name was Colonel Tate, was according to legend half black, and it kind of makes sense if you look at Manson's nose characteristics. He's got a flared nostrils out, and that's not a really common characteristic for a Caucasian. That's more along the lines of African Americans. So you can see that that's a structure that kind of, and if like you were talking about the interview with was it Robert, the guy that I think he's supposed to be related to Manson, Matthew Roberts. His
Matthew
nose is
Roberts.
his nose actually flares out as well, kind of similar to Manson. So people think that he might have a biological uh, compare. He might be related to Manson as well. But
Yeah,
to go
yeah, he has quite the story about, um, how his mom told him Charles Manson was his father.
right, exactly. So but the problem with him is that he was actually given like what I've heard was a forged will. Uh, and there was only one witness on that will. I think in California you're supposed to have more than two. I want to say because here in Texas we got to have two witnesses when you give a will. And I want to say in California there might be an additional. I'm not sure. I'm not too well with California law, but there wasn't enough witnesses on that will, so they voided that will out. But they didn't run any DNA tests because whenever Manson passed, the body goes to the next of kin. It doesn't go to whoever they decide. So that next of kin was Jason Freeman, which I'm sure you've heard of as well. He's in a civil battle for Manson estate right now. But that's between Jason Freeman and the pen pal Michael Channels. Matthew Roberts is no longer in the race. He's out. But he does look similar to Manson. It's very intriguing, I have to say.
Yeah, yeah, it
So,
really is. I'm trying to pull a picture up. Let me
right.
see if it.
So to go back to Manson's childhood, like I said, he was actually institutionalized. He grew up in prison in McNeil Island. He spent like 3/4 of his 32-year-old child or life inside, behind concrete and steel. So he really didn't have a concept of what it was like to live out in society, because he was always told, what to do, and given food. So he didn't really know how to fend for himself. But while Manson was in prison, he actually picked up a couple of books, and one of the books he picked up was Dale Carnegie's "How to Win Friends and Influence People," and that, they say, is one of Manson's key. Uh, you know, he utilized that book in order to gain his family members, because according to the book, it said if you want to have friends, if you want people to flock towards you, just be innocent, be like a puppy, and people will just come towards you, and they'll just, you'll captivate them. So he learned that, and then he also picked up the guitar while in prison and actually learned how to play from Alvin Creepy Karpis. And Alvin Creepy Karpis was from the Ma Barker gang way back. So he learned how to play by Alvin Creepy Karpis, and by the time Manson was released, he already had about 100 songs written. But when they released Manson, he told the prison guards to not release him because he didn't know how to function in society. But they couldn't hold him. That'd be unconstitutional. But they had to release him. So, and then when they released him in California in Haight-Ashbury, and that was like in 1967 when he was released. So, and that's 2 years before the murders of 1969. So that's how much time Manson had out in the real world. It was 2 years. And he was, that's about as long as he could survive, apparently, before he got arrested again. So.
Yeah, he was very institutionalized. Hey, I'm sorry if you hear my dog in the background. She's over there dreaming, making noises.
He's listening in. That's fine. Let him listen in. So, yeah. So after he was released, then he started meeting up with the family members. Now there's quite a bit of girls. Not there's few men. I don't know if you've seen any of those photos of the women, the actual family members.
Yes, I have. I can try to see if I can pull that up. I had this photo saved to my drive, but I can see.
Right. So that's the younger photo of him to the left, and then the right is when he's been. Yeah, I think that was a couple of months before he passed.
Right. Let me see if I can pull up some family members while you're talking.
Right.
So he gets out of prison when did you say, in
1967. So that's the murders happened August 8th and 9th of 1969. So that's 2 years in advance before. So Manson had 2 years of freedom before he was captured again. Now they did raid the ranch a couple of times before, but they were there for irrelevant reasons. They were there for Grand Theft Auto charges. They weren't there to get them for the murders. We'll talk about that here in a second. But so to get back to meeting the family, when Charlie was released out in Haight-Ashbury, this was around the hippie movement. So everybody there, there was free love everywhere. They were giving out LSD. There was pretty much free sex. It was the 70s or the 60s, the late 60s, the hippie heyday. So there was, a lot of people had gurus. So a lot of people actually followed people. They had, like somebody that they followed. So Charlie saw that as an opportunity to, take advantage and kind of create his own thing. And that's, what Charlie did. He would play music, and he would he kind of knew what people were thinking. And one family member in particular was Squeaky Fromm. She was a redhead family member. She was only redhead. So that one would be pretty easy to find. See, those are those three right there are the main ones that were in the murders, the first and second night.
Patricia Krenwinkel, Leslie Van Houten.
Right.
And who's the other one?
And the one in the middle is Sadie Mae Glutz, Susan Atkins.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
According to the book, she was the one that gave Sharon the fatal stab, or the fatal last wounds before she. Yeah. See, these are just a lot of the. I like it. These focus on just the people that were in the trial. They didn't
Yeah.
really, right. So
There's Tex Watson.
right, Tex Watson. Okay, and interesting. I think Tex Watson was voted most likely to succeed in high school. Was a well athlete. Real good looking guy, and after he spent about a year or two with Charlie, there's a video of him or a picture of him where he just, he doesn't look the same. I mean, he just looks malnourished. He looks like he hasn't slept in weeks, and just very terrible conditions there on the ranch. It's not. It wasn't all just sex orgies and everything and drug use. A lot of the kids were malnourished, and the cops had to come and take them into CPS and things like that. So the book goes into that, the Helter Skelter book. I think that's a good start off. I mean, the theory, it's up to you to believe what you want, and we'll get into the theories here in a minute. But that picture right there, where Charlie's the black and white there on the right corner, that was the one that was the Grand Theft Auto charge. That one right there, that's a iconic photo of him, and he just he looks like he's just on some acid trip or something. I think they just came off an acid trip after they were arrested for that Grand Theft Auto charge. They were stealing parts for dune buggies to drive out in the desert. So that's what that was about. Um, they were using somebody's car on the ranch to go and steal car parts, and they would take them apart and make dune buggies to go, according to the book, to go out to the desert and wait for the Helter Skelter War. And we'll talk about that here in a second too. Now, see that video, that field right there where they have the head shaved off.
Yeah.
That was during the trial. Where Charlie's in the Hall of Justice, and that's on the corner of Hollywood Boulevard, right in L.A. So
Yeah.
they held vigil there during the whole trial, and they shaved their heads after Charlie shaved his head, because according to the book, he said that the devil was bald, so he shaved his head, and the family members also followed suit. Now it's hard to tell, but they also have X's between their eyebrows. Now Charlie X'd himself out before he shaved his head, saying he X'd himself out of society, and that was during the trial. So we'll get to that part, but just to give you guys an idea of why they had their heads shaved, they almost mimicked Manson, and everything he did, they did, almost like a robotic thing, like they were like mentally being told what to do. Uh, and these pictures here, the ones in color, those are during the trial. These are the family members that didn't get convicted. Now that one in the red shirt, he actually helped convict Manson. That was Paul Watkins. That was one of the males that would help Manson get the women. He was a very good looking guy. So he was a very iconic family member to help convict Manson. That guy right there.
Oh, wow.
So
Who's
he,
baby? Who's holding the baby?
that's Catherine Gypsy Share. Yeah, and that baby, I want to say that's Mary
Michael?
Brunner's baby. Michael Brunner. Yeah, you got it. That's Mary
Yeah.
Brunner's baby. According to Matthew Roberts, he is related to Manson also. But like I said, he didn't want nothing to do with Manson because of the public and what Manson's name held. So he kind of just stayed out of these shadows. So yeah, just to go back to how he met. So he started meeting these girls. It's hard to go each one by one, but like I said, we'll just go over the main ones. Like, so you said Patty Krenwinkel when he
I
met
think he
Patricia. Yeah,
yeah. I think he
Patty.
met her first, right?
Right. So he met Patty, and then Patty Krenwinkel had a hair disorder on her arms and on her legs, so she had a lot of hair, and she was teased a lot. Now, when Manson met her, he told her to go to the mirror, and he made her disrobe. And when he saw the hair, he told her that she was beautiful, and she felt smitten by that, and felt charmed by Manson, and kind of fell under his wing and kind of followed him everywhere. She got like a high from that. She made love with Manson as all the family members, women did before joining the family. Now, after Krenwinkel was in the family, they met Susan Atkins. Susan Atkins was the one that was in the middle there with the long black hair, the real petite one. They were all
Yeah.
fairly petite. Now, when Manson met Susan Atkins, they were at a crash pad. A crash pad's like back in the 60s. It was just like a hippie house where everybody went and stayed the night, and went and did drugs and ate food, and just relaxed and stayed there. Now that's where Susan Atkins was when she met Manson. Manson was playing the song "Look at Your Game Girl." It's a very famous song. You can see it on YouTube. He was singing that song when he met her, and she fell in love with his music and felt like he was like an angel because he was wearing all white at the time, and he started growing a beard, so she felt like he was like an almost an angelic type figure. So she followed him, also after made love with him. And then after that, she met Leslie Van Houten, who was a high school prom queen, also a cheerleader, and pretty much just all around great girl, came from a great family, but also dabbled in drug use during the high school times, as everybody did, and got into the wrong group and started hearing about this guy named Charlie. Uh, you know, he plays, he dances, he loves us and this and that, and here's all these women around him. She kind of just wanted to meet him, went and met him, and just fell head over heels with him, just like everybody else. So those are the main ones, because there's other members, but they weren't really in the murders. So we're just gonna focus on those. Those people
Right.
right there that you have pictured, that's a good one because it has mostly the ones that did the killings. Now, we haven't talked about that guy there at the bottom left, Clem Grogan. Yeah,
Yeah.
that gentleman right there. He was actually convicted of killing Shorty Shea, a ranch hand there on Spawn Ranch. Now, he only did about 10 years and was rehabilitated, and they released him as long as he showed them where Shorty Shea's remains were. Now, when they released him, they took him to the body, and then they gave him probation, and he was released, and now he's a normal working person out in California. He does bands. He works in a band. He does shows in a band, and he goes around restaurants and does small gigs. But that guy was actually released. The other members, however, weren't. Leslie Van Houten has been denied parole. I don't know how many times now. Susan Atkins died in prison of cancer. Tex Watson is still in prison. He's a minister. And Krenwinkel, she's also in prison. She works with dogs for the blind. And Bruce Davis, that gentleman right there with the X, he's actually still in prison. But he's getting well in age, so he shouldn't last very much longer. So that's
Right.
the main ones.
And Tex Watson, he had children, right?
Tex did. He was able to have children. Yeah. And yeah, he was able to have conjugal visits. So he has 2 sons and a daughter. Right. Now, I'm not too familiar about them, but I do know, that he was able to have conjugal visits. But Charlie wasn't. Only regular visits, no conjugal. But what struck me weird was that Tex, he killed almost everybody in the house and was granted conjugal, and Charlie didn't really have a hand in any of the murders and wasn't given any. So that kind of didn't fit, the crime. You would think Tex shouldn't be allowed that, and
Yeah.
Charlie. Yeah. So, but yeah, that was just a tip there.
Yeah, I don't think they got a fair trial. I mean, that's my opinion.
Right. So the trial in itself, yeah, it was crazy. I mean, every day it was something new.
Yeah, they wouldn't even let Charles Manson testify because they were afraid he was going to like hypnotize the jury.
Yeah, exactly. So he wasn't able to testify against the jury because they felt like he would brainwash them. So it was basically just prosecution testimony that put Manson away. Uh, and it was for conspiracy because Manson didn't really, you know, wield any weapon that actually created the death of the other family members.
I
But
know it.
so to go back, after Charlie's meeting these people, he has these girls go out and they hitchhike, right? Now they're
Mhm.
out there. You got two girls out hitchhiking. And they get picked up by Dennis Wilson from the Beach Boys, and they tell him, "Hey, you're the Beach Boy guy. I need you to can you come meet our guru Charlie? He plays music too. You might like him." And then at the time, Dennis Wilson liked women. He liked drugs, and that's what Charlie had. And rock and roll guy, that's normal, right? Sex, drugs, rock and roll, that's normal.
Yep.
So he went towards Manson, met him, and when Manson met Dennis Wilson, Manson went down and kissed his feet, like almost like a servant. And Dennis Wilson was flabbergasted, didn't know what to do. So he kind of just felt like Manson was, he felt like he had like a spiritual presence to him that he wanted to learn from him. So he soaked up all this game from Manson about, all Manson's rhetoric of what he taught his followers. He didn't allow his followers to he didn't allow them to have clocks. They weren't allowed to have clocks. They weren't allowed to talk about their past. They were supposed to dissolve into nothing. Like every day they would take LSD. They were supposed to take on a new character. Like one day they would be gypsies, one day they'd be cowboys, one day they'd be pirates. And what that would do is that would get you further away from your identity to where you forgot who you were. So
Wow.
What Manson would do was he would give you LSD. He would talk about death, and you were supposed to have like a mock death to where you fake died and you gave everything up. You gave all your past, all your everything. You gave up your parents. You gave up all your relationships, all your experiences, everything. Everything forget everything from now
Yeah.
on. And then when you awaken, Manson gives you a new name, and you take on that name, and that's the name that Manson gave these. That's how they came with Gypsy. That's how they came with Squeaky, and they all had meaning to them. Uh,
Yeah.
so that was a way of Manson giving them a new, like, reborn, life in the family, and they weren't allowed to talk about their past. They weren't allowed to think. Manson would say thinking is stinking and that no sense makes sense. And they weren't allowed to think. They were just told to do. And Manson would tell them that killing was okay, that there was no right and wrong, that to kill somebody was to love somebody, that if you were able to love somebody, you should be able to kill them, because to kill them is the ultimate release, was to send them off into an infinite. And it sounds ridiculous, but you got to understand these people were under a lot of amounts of LSD, so they kind of stuck with them a little, even though it sounds bizarre. But after that, after living with Dennis Wilson and racking up a big bill, I mean, they stayed with Wilson for about 2-3 weeks, and
Yeah.
they wrecked his house. I mean, they ruined his clothes. I mean, and he just had enough and threw him out. And then that's how they found Spawn Ranch. Eventually, the bus they were driving in broke down, and they needed a mechanic. And then they found out that Spawn Ranch was nearby, so they went down to the ranch, and that's where they found the mechanic, and that's how Manson ended up settling there.
So Dennis Williams's house is the house that Sharon Tate lived in, right?
No,
No.
that one was in Beverly Hills. Now, the house that you're talking about is on Cielo Drive.
Oh, okay.
That house you're talking about, Terry Melcher.
Okay.
The Terry Melcher was the music producer that Manson was introduced to by Dennis Wilson. Now, Terry Melcher lived in that Sharon Tate's house that you're talking about. I think that's where you're confused. I think you
Okay.
mixed Terry Melcher with Dennis.
Yeah. Yeah. I have them
You had it right.
confused.
You had it right. Yeah. So Terry did occupy the house before uh, the Sharon Tate and her friends were there that night. So I think that's where you got it from.
Yeah. I was just confused of who
Right.
Let's see. Charles Manson had been to that house before, right?
Yeah, that's what I hear. That he went by asking for Terry, but when he went by there, Terry was no longer living there. He only had rented it for so long, and then the lease was up. So when he had moved out, Sharon and Roman Polanski had moved in. Roman Polanski was her husband.
Yeah.
And once they had moved in, Charlie had gone back and asked for Terry. And when he asked for Terry, he was actually shooed off the property, saying, this is the Polanski residence. Melcher
Right.
no longer lives here.
I always get Dennis and Terry confused. Always.
Yeah, yeah, I get them mixed too. So Terry, yeah, so Dennis Wilson actually introduced Manson to Terry Melcher, and I think that's another theory, is that Manson was rejected by the music industry, and he felt like this guy owed him something, and he kind of used that house as that house signified something like a rejection symbol. He didn't. I felt like he didn't care, but but I don't understand why he targeted that house if he knew that they were gone. You know, it just wouldn't
Yeah.
make sense. But another thing, what Manson was, he was actually he had a weird mind. Like when he had his followers, he would send them on creepy crawl missions. They would wear all black, and Manson would have them break into houses. Now they wouldn't do anything. They wouldn't murder anybody, but they would rearrange furniture, and they would eat food out of the refrigerator, and they'd leave stuff out. And according to Manson, what this was supposed to do, he wanted to instill fear into them. Like when they woke up, they wanted to know why was everything moved around, kind of to mess with their head. But in reality, Manson was testing them to see if they would break into houses, right? So that's just the
Right.
first part. Second part is, can you do this for me? That's typical narcissistic behavior. That's how it starts. Can you help me doing this? Can you help me with that? And then by the end, you're over here committing multiple murders for somebody. So that's how it started. Manson got these guys into breaking into houses first, and getting the fear out. That's all Manson was about, was getting rid of your fear. Uh, so
And these people did a lot of drugs like LSD and stuff, so it probably wasn't all that hard to manipulate them and brainwash them and stuff because they're
right,
on LSD, they're hallucinating. I think I heard Patricia Krenwinkel say that they did an LSD trip and saw Manson bring a dead bird back to life.
right. They were, according to them, they were on the desert one time, and Manson picked up a dead bird, blew on it, and it flew away. Now that that's you got to take that with a grain of salt, because it's everything you got to take in the book with a grain of salt, because it's other than the evidence, the physical evidence there at this crime scenes. I
Right.
mean, it's up to you to believe it or not. But yeah, so that's it. One of the miracles that they, according to the family members, they believe that Manson was the second coming of Christ, and that that there was a rumors that he would reenact the crucifixion while on LSD, and that it looked somewhat real because of the enhancement effects of the drugs.
Right.
Now, like you said, they were easily molded. So, but now, according to the book, also is that Manson, when he would dose out the LSD, he would place it on their tongues, almost like a sacrament, or like how the churches do. Now, when it came around to him taking it, he would only take half or almost none at all. Now, he did that to remain in control, because when these guys were high on LSD, Manson would control them. He would say, you get with it, because when he conducted the sex orgies, he would, nobody touched anybody else. Nobody made love to anybody else unless Manson told you to, right? So
Right.
yeah. So he was kind of conducting the whole thing, almost like yeah.
He
So
was their pimp.
right. So he had to remain in control. He couldn't be too out of it. So that was the reason why he took a lower dose. Now, Patricia had said that in one of the interviews, I think with Diane Sawyer, I think it was, that she never saw him take it.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that exact same thing. Yeah, she never saw him take it.
Right. So now that was during the lifetime on the ranch. So, but during this time on the ranch, Manson needed money, right? Because I mean, they can't just be. I mean, they lived rent free on the ranch. George Spahn was the owner, and he was nearly blind. So Manson basically was able to freely roam around the ranch, and they were roaming nude and just doing whatever they wanted. Now they were able to stay there rent free as long as they helped around the ranch and everything. Uh, help with the horses and everything, the corrals, things of that nature. Now when they were on the ranch, they actually needed money, right? So they were trying to come up a way to find money. Now Tex comes up with this scheme to actually rob a drug dealer. Right now, this drug dealer was a African American drug dealer. His name was Lots of Papa. I don't know if you can pull a picture of him. His name was Bernard Crow. Yeah, his name was Bernard Crow. That he's an African American gentleman. Tex actually found this gentleman through one of the family members, and but the problem with him was that he only sold small amounts, and they needed a big amount, and they didn't have the money. So they said, "Hey, can you front us the money? We'll go pick up the stuff and we'll bring it back to you." And he said, "That's fine." And the guy gave Tex $2,500, or he came with Tex. They went to the house, right? They gave Tex the money. The guy went in the house, and Tex actually had a friend waiting in the alleyway. He just went out the back, and they left with the money. But the problem was Tex had left that lady with them, just left that family member with the drug dealer. So they held her hostage. They said, we're going to kill this girl if you don't bring back our money. Now, Tex went back to the ranch and was scared and told Manson, "I can't go back. He's going to kill me. He's going to kill me." They think this guy's like a Black Panther guy, right? Now, Charlie says, "You have to go back, right? They're going to kill the girl." So Tex says, "I can't go." So Charlie has to go. So Charlie and the guy that drove Tex away in the getaway car with the money, his name was TJ Wallerman. Now, according to Manson, he said, "I'm going to put the gun in my back, in my waistband. I want you to come behind me, okay? And I'm going to plead to the guy." Charlie's going to get on his knees, and he's going to plead to the guy, "Please let her go." Now, according to Manson, TJ is supposed to grab the gun from behind his waistband and pull it, okay? Just to show Manson, to keep your eyes on Manson, and then the guy's going to pull the gun behind him, and then we're going to get the girl and leave. Right. Now, when this happens, TJ freezes, okay? He doesn't know what to do. He's scared. He freezes. And Manson's like waiting. He's like, "What's taking so long?" Now, he realized that TJ's backing up, so he has to pull it himself. Now, he pulls the gun, and he gets in the whole back. Now, the guy's coming towards Manson like, he's not fazed by the gun. Now, when Manson clicks it, it doesn't go off. He clicks it twice, it doesn't go off. So the guy's like, "Is this some kind of joke?" Now, he comes towards Manson, and he's squeezing his neck. And Manson lets off a third shot, and it goes off. And the guy falls down, and they grab the girl, and they leave. Now, Manson they get home, and they're fine. They think they're okay. They get back to Spawn. They think they're okay until they read the newspaper the next day, and they read that a Black Panther member was shot and killed. Now, this wasn't the same African American. This was a different guy, but Manson thought that this was the guy that they had shot and killed, and he felt like there was some retaliation that was going to come back to Spawn Ranch, right, from these Black Panther militants. So that's when they fled to Death Valley. They left Spawn Ranch to go to Death Valley, and I don't know if that's totally different. Desert. Spawn Ranch and Death Valley is totally different. Death Valley, it's hard to get there. It's farther away, and you need dune buggies to get there. And that's why Manson wanted the dune buggies to go out to Death Valley to hide out against this war. I mean, that's according to the book. Now, that's another theory, other than the motive to get back to Terry Melcher. So that's another theory. There's the Helter Skelter theory, that Manson was fearing this retaliation from these Panthers and had fled. And that's according to Bugliosi's book. So I think Manson kind of had it in his head that these guys were after the Panthers were actually after him. You know what I mean? For
Yeah.
so that was that theory. And then it makes sense because in the murders they left all these, and one of the murders they actually left a Black Panther paw to kind of make it look like Black Panthers had killed this white person to make him
Right.
start like a war, right? I mean, that's
Right.
initially what the prosecutor had come up with. Now, it's kind of hard to believe because it just doesn't sound plausible, right? That Manson thought like this, but under a lot of drug use, maybe it could have been believable. We don't know.
Yeah. And he could have been schizophrenic or something too,
He
because
could
his
have.
brain thought really weird.
He was. He didn't think straight. So it could have been possible that these guys were so whacked out that they didn't know what was reality and what was real.
It's hard to understand how he turned these middle class girls, young girls, into murderers.
Right. Exactly. And they all seem to blame Manson when it should be their own right, their own
Right.
personal. But
Right.
like I said, they feel like they killed for a cause. They feel like this was all a plan. Because a lot of people they like to credit the prosecutor for the helter skelter theory, but a lot of the members were talking about it on the police interview tapes way long before Bugliosi was actually put on the case. So they actually give the guy Bugliosi a lot more credit than they should. That he came up with this theory. But if you go to Cielo Drive, there's a YouTube page called Cielo Drive, I think, and they actually have all the tapes from all the family members interviewing them, and they were all talking about some theory that Manson had about hiding out in some hole in the desert, waiting for some war to finish, and that the black people were going to win the war, and that they were going to come out of the hole, about 144,000 of them, according to the Bible, that they were going to come out of the hole and they were going to take over because the small blacks that had survived the war, uh, almost to be their servants. Uh, Now, how did Bugliosi get that through the trial and got people to believe it? To this day, I don't know. But that's what they were prosecuted for, was this helter skelter thing
Right.
that Manson had heard. He had listened to the Beatles album, the White Album, and that they were sending him a message, and preferably in the Helter Skelter song. So they zeroed in on that song in particular because Manson would play it over and over, backwards and forwards, and that he was hearing voices. That
Do
there
you
were
know? Patricia Krenwinkel said that he made them reenact the crucifixion.
right.
Isn't that
So
crazy?
he, in a way, I'm wondering, did he actually think he was Jesus Christ, or he didn't really say I am Jesus
It,
Christ? He almost had them
I heard,
believe it.
I heard him in an interview. They asked him that, and he said, "All men are Jesus." That was his
Yeah,
answer.
he's a character. I mean, I don't have any sympathy for what they've done, but the guy is, you can't get through many of his interviews without laughing. I mean, he's a character. I mean, he's very charming. But I don't know, he's very maniacal. I mean, I wouldn't trust him, you know. He's very sneaky, almost devilish. Uh, Now, according to the family members, Manson said that he was both Christ and the devil, half and half. Uh, Now, that could be that he could be good and he could be bad, like everybody, right? We can all be good and bad, but he had a weird rhetoric. Um, I mean, he had his families eating out of garbage dumps, to survive. He instilled to them the hobo life because that's all Manson was basically a hobo. He didn't really have a home. He lived on the streets and taught them that they could go find good food out of the garbage cans. He
Right.
actually went with Dennis Wilson one time in a Rolls Royce to behind the grocery stores, and they went through the garbage together. And Manson showed Dennis Wilson how they got food. They would find rotten fruit and they would just cut it out. And Manson would instill to them, you guys are like these fruits. Your parents threw you out because, and all you needed was just to be picked up and cleaned up. And that stayed with them.
Yeah. It
So
seems like all these young girls had like problems in their home life or
yeah,
insecurities within their own self.
exactly. Right. So they kind of were perfect uh, for Manson. Like he was able to mold them because Manson couldn't use people that didn't have any problems. He would use that.
Exactly.
He would use that. He would say, you still have hangups. You still have I still see your mother on you. I still see your father on you. You're not dead yet. You have to rid yourself of all of that. You have to rid of all yourself of all your past. You have to start over. And that's, how I think that's how Manson molded them and eventually brainwashed them to some extent to believe, to kill for him. You know, they
Yeah.
loved him so much that they would go out and commit these murders uh, for him. So,
I think
but
I
the
think
sad thing
Squeaky I think
was
Squeaky was in love with Manson.
right to talk about Squeak. I think when she was actually arrested in 1975. Do you remember that when she
Yeah.
actually held a gun to Gerald Ford?
Mhm.
There was it made worldwide news. I think she's in a red robe, uh, and
Yeah.
she's being held up. Yeah, she actually went. Now I'm not saying Manson told her to do that, but this occurred when Manson was no longer in the headlines. Manson had already been arrested, and his name was dying down. People were starting to forget him. Now all of a sudden, Squeaky had come back out of the shadows and had done this. Now a lot of people think that Manson had sent her to do this, but according to her, she did it on her own, on her own,
Yeah.
on her own
She
will.
wanted to go to prison with her family members. I think I heard her say in an
Right.
interview.
So that could have been it. Maybe her conscience got to her, right? That
Right.
everybody else did things for Charlie, and I'm here. I haven't done anything. And according, if she did love Manson, I bet that her conscience got to her and said, I have to do something." But when she was arrested, now I want to say about 10 years, 15 years in prison, she heard word that Manson had got cancer and had escaped. She was in Alderson, Virginia prison, I believe. And then she had escaped, and only had she was on the loose for 24 hours, and they found her and brought her back. But she actually had escaped because she had heard that Manson was sick,
Yeah.
so she had escaped. Now that's a whole nother story. Is the uh, the devotion that the followers had,
I
like the
know.
picture that you had brought up where they were sitting on the curb there. They sat there all day. They actually, in one video, it's pretty rare, but if you could find it on your own free time, they actually walked on their hands and knees about a mile long. They walked from Hollywood Boulevard all the way down to the courthouse, and that's a mile long. And they walked on their hands and knees, and according to them, they did that for the second coming of Manson. That the gates, that the jails were going to open up, and that Manson was going to be free. That yeah. So these people, they did you ever see that part where they're singing going down the hallway? I mean, the three
Yes.
girls. You saw that? I mean,
Yes.
they're happy. So they just killed Sharon Tate, right? An
Freaking
upcoming
nuts.
and up, yeah, and it's sad what they did. Where was Sharon Tate? That she was just starting to become an actress, right? Now, the whole reason was why they found out. When Manson, you remember back when I told you that they had gotten arrested for Grand Theft Auto
Yeah.
for stealing cars. Now, when they were in there for stealing cars, Susan Atkins, that one with the black hair, the one in the middle there,
Mhm.
she started opening her mouth and talking to her cellmate, saying, "I I'm in here for the murder of Sharon Tate," and she's like, "I don't believe you." And she's like, "Well, I can give you some of the evidence to tell you that I was there." And she started telling her, "I stabbed Sharon Tate. I stabbed this guy in the legs. And eventually, the police took up that lead because one of the victims was stabbed in the legs, and that was, I mean, a lot of people don't get stabbed in the legs, so they remembered that. They said, oh, well, maybe this could be a good lead. So they went and talked to her, and they eventually held Susan Atkins without release because of this incriminating information that she had released. Now, when she had released that, they still didn't have Manson and the rest of the family, so of course they had to go find Manson, and that's when they found him in Death Valley. He was hiding in a cabinet, a very small cabinet. I don't know how he got in there. I mean, Manson was very small. He was about 5 foot tall, so he
Yeah.
was a very tiny guy. So he was
It,
able to maneuver his way in a small cabinet. I mean, tiny. And the
but
only thing that was hanging out was his hair, and that's why they found
yeah, they said he was very dirty too. He
him.
smelled.
Right. So Manson didn't allow them to use, soap and deodorant because he saw that as that was destroying the environment. Right. Like Manson was big on the whole keeping the keeping the earth clean, not dirtying the waters and stuff like that. So that's how Manson lived. Felt like they had to live was like animals, and that's how they basically lived,
Yeah.
eating out of garbage cans. You know, just not, they didn't work. They stayed on the ranch all the time, and they just, made love and slept basically all day.
God, how
That's
could they make love and never take a shower?
exactly. So I guess that was normal back then, right? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's yeah. So that was just the ranch life, It was nothing
Yeah.
like, yeah, nothing like how we live. So yeah, and the whole thing is the with the ongoing case now, it's just kind of like a waiting game. Who gets all of Manson's rights to his music, everything, his estate.
I was listening. I was telling them earlier. I watched these people earlier today that do travel vlogs. They're big YouTubers. I'd have to go back
Right.
through my history and find the video.
Yeah.
But they did an interview with, let me look at his name, Matthew Roberts,
Right.
and he was talking about the will that guy brought out and gave to him, and he
Right.
said the state's like worth 3 million.
Really.
Yeah, and he said he made a little bit, but not much off of his music.
Right. Yeah. Interestingly, his music has actually got a lot of views on YouTube. A lot of Manson music. Some of it's kind of choppy because it was recorded in prison, so you can hear a lot of the cells shutting. You can hear a lot of the guards yelling, but a lot of it is clear. Like one of them is "The Look of Your Game Girl." Another one is "Cease to Exist." That song "Cease to Exist" actually was redone by the Beach Boys. They borrowed it from Manson and they changed it and had released it on an album of theirs. And according to Manson, it angered him because he didn't like his lyrics to be messed with. It was almost a message. He didn't want that. He didn't allow them. He didn't give them permission to do that, and
Right.
angered him. Yeah, and according to the book, also that Dennis had gotten threats because of that. So it makes you think: was Manson really serious about his music? Because some people think that if Manson had not done this, he could have been a musician. Now, his music is, subpar to say the least. So I don't know how long that would have lasted, right? So, but he did have some good songs. I mean, I have to admit, his some of it, he did have a good voice, and he was pretty intelligent. For somebody that had no schooling and grew up in prison, he was, he wasn't dumb. He was pretty witty. So
Yeah.
now to go back to that interview, I think I did see that one. That's the guy is I think his name is Jordan, right? Jordan the Lion.
Let me
He's the
go
one that
see. Let me
he's
go
the
see
one
if
that
I
did
can
the
find the
interview.
video.
Yeah, that's a great one. If you can send that link if you can put that link, because that guy really goes into it as far as his relationship with Manson, and I think he's working on a documentary. Didn't he say, Cece?
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
So
He's working on a documentary.
Right.
Okay.
So we have, yeah, you got some things to look forward to as far as his relationship. If he's gonna, you know, uh, make a, may possibly a movie. Maybe he looks like he could play a good Manson guy. I mean, he looks pretty close.
He looks just like Charles Manson.
Yes, right. I mean, the guy Jason Freeman, I don't see the resemblance. I tell you.
Well, he was saying I just posted the link to the video we're talking about. He was saying that the court ordered Jason to do a DNA test, and he won't do it.
Right.
Why? If he's really Charles Manson's grandson, what's he
Right.
got to lose? What is he hiding?
Exactly. I think he might not be. I think that's what you mean. He might not be related, so he's kind of hesitant
Yeah,
to. Yeah. So if he takes it, he might fail, and if he fails, then he's not biologically related to him. He might be a stepson, but he's not biologically related, so he won't be able to be next of kin to receive that estate. Now, there's other people that do have some of Manson memorabilia that aren't related to him that have bought their memorabilia, like Zach Baggins. He runs like a ghost channel, a ghost show, paranormal type. He's actually bought one of the murder houses, and he's got, I think he's got Manson's false teeth and a bunch of his jailhouse, his jailhouse wardrobes and a lot of his possessions that he kept in the cell. And he has them on display in a museum that he has, I think, I want to say in California. I think I want to get that wrong. Yeah, I think it's in California.
I think you're right.
Right. So he had along with Manson, he has other serial killer memorabilia, but in one in particular, he has a picture of Manson that was drawn, and in the eyes, it actually has some of Manson's cremations ashes in it. Now, a lot of people can't even look at the photo because it's almost like a chilling feeling you get from it. You can probably find it online. It actually has his ashes inside the eyes of the painting of Manson, and it also has blood in the painting. It's a blood painting. That's what it is, a Manson blood painting.
I gotta look this up. Who's
Yeah.
the Who's the artist?
If you just put Manson blood painting, it should be the first thing that pops up because I think there's only one out there in existence.
So
Now the blood isn't Manson's, but the ashes are. Because of course, because Manson had a cremation, you don't get bloods at a cremation. They embalm you, and they torch you. Now the cremations they at Manson's funeral, because they did have a funeral for Manson that was held sort of private, not very many publicity knew about it. Now they did do a show on it that was released on the Real show
mhm.
at Manson's funeral. Now they had handed out some ashes to everybody that attended, and I think some of the ashes were sold to an artist, and he had put them in the painting. See, that's the painting right there. That's
Oh my
actually
god.
that's a display piece.
So some people have bought Charles Manson's ashes and actually put
Right.
it in tattoo ink and got a tattoo.
Oh my gosh. No kidding.
Yes, that's what this guy's saying in the interview that I watched today. Matthew
Oh,
Roberts. Yeah, he said that he didn't think that was right. It's disrespectful to the dead.
right.
He
See,
said
he has a, yeah,
Charles Manson, even though, he was accused and convicted of horrible things, still had people that cared about him,
right.
you know.
Exactly. He still has a following to this day.
Yeah.
People that think that he was innocent or that shouldn't have been in prison.
Yeah, Stoner Van Helton, isn't that his name?
Yeah, and he's got some grudges against Jason Freeman. He does not like him.
Absolutely not. That's
Right.
how I found his channel. I was looking up stuff about Jason Freeman. When it first came out, he was trying to get Charles Manson's body and stuff.
Yeah, he's against the helter skelter theory. He just does not like those two words. If you cannot say those words in this chat room, he will throw you out.
Oh my
He's
God, thanks for telling me.
he's big on the drug theory. And
They
that's a
never
whole
discuss anything there, though. They always just played music.
They don't, because he doesn't have. I mean, like a lot of his information is potentially biased. He's almost like a supporter, so he's gonna say anything to get Manson off the hook. I mean, he doesn't really care about the people that were murdered. He doesn't care about the family members that are grieving. He cares about Manson and Manson only. Because according to him, Manson was what kept him out of prison. Uh, he sees him like a role model now. I don't know anybody who looks at Manson as a role model. I sure don't. I'm just infatuated with how he thought and what made him tick. That's the problem.
Exactly.
That's the problem, is trying to talk serial killers with people. They look at you like right away like you're crazy. But it's more like, where it's a more of a fascination, like with true crime, like what you do, you don't like the murders. You just want to know what makes them tick.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with Ted Bundy. I've been for a
Yeah.
long time.
Right. And that's another one that I felt like he had got rejected from, I think it was from a woman, and it kind of started from there. Because if you notice, all of Ted Bundy's victims resembled the one that rejected him. I mean, they all had black hair. They're all petite. They kind of looked the same, if you notice. And they
Yeah,
kind of saw that as like a tick for Ted Bundy, that he had a thing for that type of woman, like a rejection symbol or something.
yeah. This girl broke his heart, and she
Right.
had dark hair, and they
Yeah.
all looked like her.
Yes. Exactly. Now he was totally different. I mean, he was very smart. I mean, Ted Bundy, he took his own case. Was very a bright young man. He could have been a great attorney. I think the judge told him before he was sentenced to execution that he wished he could have practiced in his courtroom.
Yeah. I heard
So
one attorney say Ted Bundy knew just enough about law to get himself in trouble in the courtroom.
right, because do you remember when they had to take mouth impressions? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Because he had bit one of the victims, and they
Yeah.
wanted to check if his teeth match, and he didn't want to. They had to basically pry his mouth open to get those teeth impressions, and they matched perfectly because Ted Bundy had an overbite on one of his teeth, and they had matched perfectly.
Yep.
I mean, there was just no way that Ted Bundy wasn't at the scene. Uh, you know, but I think the worst scene I want to say was the sorority house murders. I think
Yeah.
that was the worst murder of Ted Bundy's spree. Now, when
He
Ted
did
Bundy
some
was
bad ones. One girl he about decapitated. I
right,
know. He did return to visit the bodies after he would place them and sometimes have sex with them.
right, he would fornicate with them after they were almost torn apart by animals.
Yeah. He was
So
sick.
yeah, this guy really. I think he was a necrophiliac. I think that's what you say. What he was.
Yep.
He wasn't like Dahmer. Dahmer a little different. I think Dahmer was more into zombies. Ted Bundy was more into necrophilia, I want to say.
Dahmer tried to make zombies so that he could have a sex slave, and like he would keep the dead bodies and lay next to them because like he wanted to be loved so bad or
Oh
something.
my
Gosh,
God.
he was totally warped. And
Yeah, exactly. Some people find Dahmer. Some ladies found Dahmer attractive, and I
no,
just didn't see it. Yeah,
no,
I saw it in the chat. I was like, I could not believe my eyes because and some people found Manson attractive. So there's some people out there you have to question. What they're these are murderers. And like some murderers actually had women attend their trials. I don't know if you remember Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. Uh,
yes, I
he
read that
actually
book.
right now in his trial, there's a video where he's got black glasses on and he's in the courtroom and he keeps looking back. Now he's looking back because there's a row of women there staring at him, and they're attracted to him. Uh, and you see this all the time. You see women they write to people in jails and inmates, and they Like Chris Watts, he's getting mail now. He's got, I'm sure he's got girlfriends in there, that are proclaiming love to him. So
Right.
you have to, yeah, there it is crazy out there. You have to judge why people have interactions with these kind of people
Because
and
they
what.
got problems themselves when
Yeah,
they fall in love with these serial killers. They're not right in their own mind, or they
right.
wouldn't. I
And
mean,
you see,
how could anyone find Chris Watts attractive? He slaughtered his wife and two little girls, his pregnant
yeah,
wife.
right.
They both
No, but yeah, the act is nasty. Now, Chris Watts as an individual, I think he is a nice looking a guy. I mean, his looks, only his look, not his
right,
act. Now, his acts make him ugly. Now,
right.
him as an individual, I think he's a nice looking guy. He got in shape. He was looking good, and it kind of made sense that he had done this for this other girl that he had got, maybe a love soiree or a love triangle that might have happened uh, with you know Nicole Kessinger. I mean,
Hmm.
maybe that he had thought that if I take care of this, I can live my rest of my life with her and start all over. But it just doesn't fit why he'd kill the girls. To this day, I don't understand why he'd have to kill them. You know.
Like, how did he think he was going to get away with that and start a new life, though?
Right.
I
I
mean,
mean, I feel like he almost got away with it, right? I mean, other than that camera footage that had really caught him in the act. I mean, what other
I
evidence?
think I think eventually they would have found Shanann's body and figured out the girls were in the oil tanks, whether he confessed or not, because I mean, where did she go? He was the only one there. The house was locked up. Her car was home. I mean, where did
Yeah,
she go? It had to have been him, you know. It may have just took them a little longer to find her, but I believe that they would have found out he did that.
right. Now, I'm not really well informed about the Chris Watts case. I was going to read the book. I don't know if it touched on his life or it was just about the letters, but what I remember was when he was in the house and they're going over the camera footage, and then you can just see he's sweating bullets. I mean, he doesn't want them to look at the camera. I mean, you could tell. I mean, he's just the lady. There's the neighbors telling him, I feel like something's wrong. He's not acting right. He's not acting like how he usually acts. He would look scared, like he was
Yeah.
worried. So what is
Yeah.
he worried about? You would think you'd be panicking. Now
You
he's
could
constantly on
you
a
could
cell phone.
tell. Yeah, you could tell he did something by the first interview. The first time I saw him on TV, I looked at my husband and I was like, he did something to his family. And that's actually how I found the YouTube true crime community, was that
Really?
case.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I noticed that a lot of people got their subscriber base because of Chris Watts.
Now I didn't. I've not done many Chris
No,
Watts videos.
right. But how you
Um,
came to YouTube was through that case. But you
yeah,
didn't gain your subscriber base through Chris Watts.
right,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Every
Very.
time I do a video about him, I have bad luck. And while I'm doing the voiceover, I always get this feeling like, oh, you really shouldn't do this video. I don't know why. I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
crazy, but it's true.
Yeah. You do have. Yeah. You have. I think it's your conscience. You do have empathy for these victims. That's just only normal. You're not like
Yeah.
like it doesn't bother you. Yeah. I see completely what you're saying. So, the Chris Watts letters, are they more recantings, or are is he going into more detail, or maybe possibly a reason why?
Uh, the night I sent you the file with the book, I
Yeah.
had just gotten it too, so I have not even read it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I need to. Yeah. So, hopefully, it keeps up with it, because some people say it wasn't written like really well. I don't know if how they arranged the letters, but a lot of people say it wasn't written as well as they thought it would be.
Right. Right.
So,
Well, we'll have to see. Maybe we can
yeah,
do a live stream and discuss it once we read a few chapters or something.
that'd be cool to do, actually. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that. So that could, yeah, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks I should be able to, or a week or two, actually, I have it done. Hopefully. Is it a fairly long book?
I don't even know.
Yeah,
I,
I have
I
looked
really,
into it.
Yeah, we're going to have to definitely check that out. You need your own true crime channel. You know a lot about Manson. You did really good. I was sitting here
Yeah,
listening to you. I was so into it.
it's. I mean, it all came from just reading books. That case just. Oh my God, I was sucked into it so much, and I was just researching all the time. And that's what you remember is what you read. You always remember what you read. I mean, I can read documentaries. I can watch them, but I won't remember anything. But what
Oh,
I
that
read,
I'm like that too.
yeah. So, but yeah, the interviews that you were mentioning was good. I know you were talking about the one with was it Sawyer? No, not Sawyer. It was Snyder.
Snyder. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I
a
want to
good
say that was the first interview, CC ever.
one. Really?
I believe
I love
so.
I love it. Tom Snyder. I think his name's Tom. He lights a cigarette.
Yeah, he's always smoking. He's cool. I think he had a show other than I want to say he had a show that back in the day, but he while he was in that cell with Manson, he was asking a lot of questions to him, kind of baiting him to kind of admit to it. I think that's Manson kind of was scared to tell him. A
Right.
lot of it was, did you do it? Why did you send them and stuff like that. When in
Yeah.
reality, Manson doesn't really answer those kind of questions. He'll kind of evade them. So,
Right.
yeah, that's the only reason why I got in that case. It's almost like what Brian does with the Darley case. Exactly.
Right.
I mean, he knows that case inside and out. I mean, and he had some great success with this channel because of that. So,
Yeah, I'm going to set up another live stream and have him come up and talk about the Darley case.
yeah,
Cuz
that'd be great. You should set that up. And then, give him some time so that way he could, because, they're doing a DNA test right now currently on Darley. Um,
I'm not going to take it easy on him this time though. He thinks I will.
yeah,
I'm going to be questioning him. I'm going to
yeah,
do
you
my
got to
homework.
debate him. You got to
Yeah, I'm
debate
going to.
him. Yeah, you got to have your facts. Get your facts, and then go at him. You might be able to stump him. You never know, because I still have a lot of questions on that case. And when you ask questions, a lot of people think that you think that Darley's innocent just by asking questions, but it's just concerns because that case there wasn't really a smoking gun. There's a lot of with Darren. A lot of people think Darren had some ties to it, so there's still some speculation uh, in that case. And if Darley's going to be executed, we need to clear that up before she's killed, because we don't want any
Abs-
implication. Yeah. So that
Absolutely.
now we should set that up. So I want to say I can contact with Brian, or if you have his email, you can contact him. And or have you spoke with him about that, about getting the Darley live going? Because that'd be a great.
Yeah, he was in here the other morning on my live stream, and I was like, "We need to do another Darley," and he was like, "Yeah, I'll set it up anytime." My dog's gonna start crying on me.
Yeah, so
She's
yeah,
been,
let's set that up, and we'll continue next time on it. So I'll do a little research on that as well, so we can give him some questions, because I have a lot of concerns on that one regarding Darley. So
yeah. Next time we'll get my friend Red Red Media. You should check out her channel. She does true crime.
yeah,
Um,
so
she's a
she
lot more
covers
She's a lot more professional than me.
like the editing and everything. It's
Yeah.
harder. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, if you can drop the link in the chat, that'd be awesome. So that way so I could sub to for the live end streams or the stream end. So.
Yeah, let me.
Or I could always go back and replay it also, right? Is the chat gonna be up?
Yeah, it'll be
Cool.
up.
All
As
right.
soon as I get off here, it'll be up.
All right.
Let me just get a link to one of Katie's videos
Cool.
and I'll put it in the chat. She just came out with a great video. I don't know where she went and visited, but it was like a paranormal video. And she
Yeah.
did a really good job with the editing and stuff. I mean, it was like watching one of the ghost shows. It really
Well,
was. I was really proud of her.
they're getting good. I mean, it is if you practice enough, you really start to get a feel for it, especially if you're techie. If you're good on the computer, you'll learn it real easy after a while. I think Brian's starting to pick up on editing too. He's starting to learn how to edit his videos.
Yeah, I
So,
mostly just read some articles, throw a picture up, do a voiceover because I'm
right.
not really that good at wording things, and then usually we'll talk about them during my morning live
Right.
streams.
So yeah,
So,
that's a good way to get like a message across of what you're going to talk about. I think that's easier, simpler. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
it is. It is for me.
but yeah, I appreciate you letting me up though, CC. I know we've been on here about an hour, right? About an hour and a half.
Yeah, about an hour and a half. Hey,
Yeah.
you're
So
welcome. I really enjoyed it. And
yeah,
we'll set up the Darley thing for one night when you're
cool.
free. And Brian, I'll shoot him a
Yeah,
message.
yeah. I'll relay it to him and we'll plan it by ear then.
All right. Thank you. And y'all
No
check out
problem.
Marky Mark's channel. I had put the
Yeah,
link in there earlier, but I'll go back
yeah.
and get it again.
I go live every now and then. We just we'll do like some trivia. We'll just spitball. We'll just chat. Just pass the time. So yeah, it was nice meeting the chat room. So we have to do this again, Cece. We'll get Brian on panel and we'll do a segment on Darley.
Oh, most definitely. You have a good night. Thank you.
You
You
too
did
now.
so well.
Great. Thank you so
All right.
much. Bye bye now, chat. Bye bye, Cece.
Bye. Bye. Guys, I'm trying to find Marky Mark's freaking link here. Let me go see if I can find it. Hold on, Skylar. I'm coming, girl. It took me forever to find his channel. You got to get a URL, dude. If someone else has the link, that would be great. Let's see. Let me scroll and find it. It took me a second to find it a few minutes ago. Hush, Skylar. Can you give me time to find it? Oh my goodness, there's so many Marky Marks here. Did you find it, Southern Mom? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, guys, I got to get off here. Thank you all for chatting. I love you all. I'll see you Monday morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Peace.